Welcome to the STEM Pathways podcast, where we delve into the fascinating world of science, technology, engineering, and math. I'm your host, Rohan Sharma, a passionate explorer of all things STEM. Each episode, we bring you captivating stories, cutting edge research, and inspiring interviews with experts and enthusiasts who are pushing the boundaries of innovation. Whether you're a student, a professional, or just curious about how the world works, join us as we unlock the mysteries of the universe and explore the endless possibilities of STEM. Let's get started. Today, I'll be interviewing Aayush Pathak, who has a master's in electrical engineering at the University of Southern California and an MBA at U Chicago. How are you doing today?
Good, I'm doing pretty well. Thank you for having me on the podcast.
Yeah. So to get started, I wanted to ask what made you choose your degree when you're picking out your bachelor's?
Oh well, yeah. I grew up in Delhi, and like most of the Indian households, going to college and education was kind of a strict requirement. And my mom was a teacher, so I grew up in a setup where she was coaching and tutoring a lot of students. So all my house would be filled by a lot of students from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. and I would see them study and studies. And she taught economics and sciences. So I grew up with a lot of my friends and her students learning a lot about science. And I was a curious kid, I believe. Um, Doing that, I slowly got inclined towards learning computers when I was a kid. And my father promised me that he'll only get me a computer only if I could code on it. He had heard from his friends that coding is something that kids do these days. It was back in like late 90s, early 2000s. Um, so he got me into a small computer institute where I learned C++, Java, HTML, PHP as a sixth grader or seventh grader, which back in the day was pretty cool. Now even a fourth grader could code. But yeah, and I was really inclined on learning computers. So I spent next 6 years from my say middle school till high school taking all the computer classes that I could in my school, learning a lot about physics, chemistry, maths, history. Uh, but I think as I grew older and was approaching my college age, my love for coding slowly went down, and I wanted to go even deeper, layer deeper, understand how the electrics of the system works. How does like my pressing an enter does something on the screen? And that's how I got introduced into electronics. Then I went to college in India, did my bachelor's in electronics and communication engineering, learned about a bunch of things, took some advanced classes. Some classes I felt were not so useful, but now when I look back, each of those classes were required and shaped me as a good engineer that I believe I am today.
And where'd you do your bachelor's?
So I went to a private school in India. I'm at university. It's in the north part of India in Noida. So I went to that school.
Mhm. All right. So what made you want to come here and then do a master's?
Yeah, I was working at a company right after my undergrad, making mobile communications satellite chips, which was in Bangalore, very far from where I grew up. So my parents wanted me to relocate and probably find a job close to home. I moved close to them in Delhi, and I was working at a EDA company. EDA is a software that is used to make hardware. Um, that company, it had really smart people. All of my team, my small team of 10 people, all of them had masters and PhDs, except me. And sometimes I would be really amazed seeing their ideas and how they thought about the problems that the chip design industry had. And that really motivated me to go and learn something more fundamental about this engineering side, because I came from a very basic understanding from undergrad and then working in the industry for 5 years. But I think that was the right time to make that move to a graduate degree. And my boss at that time really supported me and helped me to apply and find a good school. He wrote some great recommendations for me. And 2014, fall of 2014 is when I landed in the United States to do my grad school.
Yeah. So what was your experience like doing that?
Very different from what I had studied in India. Although I had the GPA structure in India, so all my classes were GPA based, which is relative scoring. But US was a very different way on how you study things, how you do your assessments, and how you do your lab work. And I was new to all of this, and I was coming after a long break of almost 5 years of not going to school. So school, then 5 years of job. And then once you are employed, probably the taste of money and coffee makes you a little sloppy when it comes to going back to college. So it was really hard. The first semester was pretty hard for me. And I think USC has one of the hardest electrical engineering programs if it comes to digital electronics. So I struggled a bit in my first semester. And then second and third onwards, I think I got some handle on it. I understood the tricks of the trade and then sailed through. But it was a huge learning curve. I learned a lot of things that I did not know, and a lot of things were refreshed that I knew from my undergrad. Uh, yeah, the experience was amazing, all in all.
Yeah. So after that, do you do your MBA or did you work for a while and then do that?
So I worked for almost 8 years after that,
Mm.
rather 6 years just after my grad school. I worked at Intel making server computers, and now I work at Microsoft making something similar. And the thought of MBA was always lingering in my head to bring this knowledge of engineering and business together so that we can create more better products and market them and take it to the consumers. And so that is where the thought of MBA was in my head, I believe, since 2019. And then COVID happened. A lot of other things kept on happening, and I pushed my plans. But I started it in 2022, and I just graduated 2024.
Yeah. Um, are you happy that you did the MBA?
Yeah, very happy. So I believe all the education decisions that I took doing my college or doing my grad school, doing my MBA have turned out to be really amazing in terms of experience, in terms of exposure, in terms of things that I learned, in terms of meeting new people who are doing some amazing research and building the new cool technology and new policy frameworks for the world. So yes, it was awesome.
Oh, what exactly do you study in an MBA? Is it mostly just like classes like you do in an undergrad, or is it very different from that?
Uh, so I did executive MBA, which is a little bit different. The average age of my class was 37 or 38 years. And people range from the spectrum of 31 years or 27 years all the way till 60s. So this is a very wide spectrum class, and people have varied interest, backgrounds, experiences, and job roles. So I have some CEOs in my class. I have chief marketing officers. I have people who work at Nike, Apple, Intel, Google, Amazon's, and they all bring very different kind of perspectives into class discussion. And the MBA program in general, I believe, is catered not just teaching you theoretical frameworks, but adding a layer of real practicalness to it. That, okay, this is what demand and supply looks like, but these are the constraints under which real world demand and supply works. Not all demand is very linear. Not all supply is very linear. There are a lot of challenges that happen, and how do you tackle them? What are the technologies? What are the tools? What are the skills needed? Undergrad, I believe, teaches you a lot of theoretical frameworks and also opens up your mind in terms of how you want to think for a bigger problem. How do you want to dissect that problem into smaller, manageable chunks? But as you grow older and as you learn new things, I think the expectation is for you to uh, sharpen those skills that you learned in undergrad and make them even more powerful and more lethal to attacking these problems that are like trying to destroy humanity.
Yeah. So, as you got in obviously a very good MBA program, the U Chicago Booth School of Business. As you said, the average age of people in that is 37, 38 years old. So obviously people aren't just doing this right after their undergrad, like a lot of other master's programs. When looking at admissions in the MBA programs, is that mostly based off of your professional successes?
That depends on which MBA program you want to go and which school. There are different varieties and flavors of MBAs right now. So there's the
Also,
full-time MBA.
yeah, can you talk about the different MBAs? I think you said that
Sure.
you work in you did an executive one, right?
Right. So there are full-time MBAs, online MBAs, part-time MBAs, weekend MBAs, executive MBAs, you name it, the flavor exists. So full-time is something where you quit your job, you do a full-time degree like undergrad degree or a graduate school. There's nothing else but to study and do your MBA. And then look for internship, look for jobs after you graduate. Then there is an online MBA where just like any other online degree, you can do what you are doing in your life and then take the classes online on the computer. And the part-time caters to people who have a day job and only can go in the evenings or on the weekends to take these classes. Then the executive MBA has a little bit different side to it. It is catered to people who have a little bit more experience of the practical job world, and it does not start from ground zero, because a lot of us already know by working in the industry what demand looks like, what supply looks like, and what are the financial constraints that happens, and what are the financial regulations around us. So we start discussing right on the problems. We know the basics, and they are just like skimmed through, and then we start building on top of it. But for full-time online MBAs and evening weekend MBAs, you spend a lot more time understanding the fundamentals of the markets, of the economies, of industries, of strategies. But for executives, some things they assume you know, which is true, because the kind of interview process that happens and the kind of tests that we do before getting into a program are a little bit different than a full-time or an online or a part-time MBA.
Yeah. So when you're doing your MBA, you said that your class has like a lot of people who have obviously been in the business world for a long time, CEOs, uh, and people like that. How does that affect your experience while doing it?
Oh, it dramatically it has opened my worldview in a dramatic sense, and not only people who have not only people who have really good experience, but rather people who have experience like being a Marine, going to wars, jumping out of an airplane just to save the world, or people who have played in the Olympics or played sports at the national level for their college. And in no way, I think it would have been possible for me to meet these kind of people, let alone sit in a class and debate with them about economic policies. Because their background and their mindset and their way of thinking about a problem is very different than what mine is. And when these two worlds kind of collide in a good way, something really beautiful comes out of it. I don't see a problem the way they do. They don't see the problem the way I do. When we sit in a study group and debate about a common problem, these perspectives just evolve, and just like jamming with a good band or riffing with them and coming up with better ideas. Uh, so yes, MBA I think gives you a better exposure on talking to people who have different backgrounds but same similar goals, and are looking at the problem from different angle, the same problem from a different angle.
Yeah. Wait, so when you were doing your MBA, were you still working?
Yeah, I was working at Microsoft.
Oh, and then you did it in person, so you're in Chicago, right?
Yes.
Oh,
So I would fly down every other Wednesday night, and stay in Chicago on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and come back on Sunday mornings.
all the way to Washington?
Yeah.
Wow. So, wait, so when did you start working at Microsoft then?
I started 2022, the same year I started my
Oh,
MBA.
okay. And you're still there.
I'm still there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, can you talk a little bit specifically about what you do at Microsoft?
So at Microsoft, we are building the hardware capacity for Microsoft, meaning Microsoft is building its own server chips, which are called Cobalt 100 and Maya 100 now. And these chips are capable of doing workloads which are, say, Teams and Office and Outlooks, so that we have much variety on Azure available for our customers to choose from, not necessarily really expensive instances from Intel or AMD or NVIDIA. You could pick instances that are not that expensive and have a very good performance for the workload that you want to run. So my team builds these kind of chips. They are these Xeon or AMD's equivalent for different kind of workloads.
Yeah. So, are you in more of a management role then?
Not at the moment. I'm still an engineer,
Mhm.
and but I have my hands in different pots, and I try different things.
Mhm.
Each quarter, where I'm leading a group that is devising different IPs, trying to work with sustainability group on doing something good for the climate in a very non-traditional management capacity, where I'm working with a group of people who are located all across the globe, so that we can have good sustainability policies at Microsoft. So that is not part of my official day job, but I'm really inclined on working on that. So I
You talk
use
a little
my
more specifically about that.
okay. So Microsoft, like any other big corporation, has a sustainability group within it. And that includes how do we buy our materials, where do we buy it from, do we buy it, and what kind of impact it has on our climate. And Microsoft has a really ambitious goal of being carbon negative by 2030, another 6 years, and then being carbon negative by 2050. So these kind of goals require people, companies, the processes to come together and take very, very mature and very calculated steps on how we're going to procure things, how we're going to make data centers, where we are going to make them, how we'll be putting electricity in it. So this group champions all these talks and rather knowledge sharing. So we have speakers who come and talk to a group of people. And then there are some on-site visits where we do to learn new things. But a particular thing that I'm involved in is working with some of the employees in Microsoft to create a better understanding on our stand in US Chamber of Commerce. So Microsoft is a part of US Chamber of Commerce, and so is Exxon, Shell, and all the big polluters. But Microsoft, despite being Microsoft, has a very small say in that chamber. So we're trying to see if we can enhance Microsoft's voice in that chamber, or if not, then is it better for us to leave?
Yeah.
So
So,
that could be a big step for Microsoft.
wait, so back to how your MBA is like directly affected your current job. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it has affected in several ways. So when I was an engineer, I would just look at the problem from what is assigned to me, what I'm working on in a very siloed way. But when I have a understanding of business, where does this work really get plugged into and what impact it creates, I can take better decisions. I can make better products. Suppose if someone asked me to make an IP that reduces power without knowing where a data center it is going, what kind of power reduction do you want? But with an MBA, I understand, oh, if I reduce power, the electricity bill of the data center will go down, and that those benefits will get passed down to consumers who use Azure Cloud, because now the cloud will be cheaper for them. And then if it's cheaper for them, they're going to use it for longer. They're going to use it for longer. They're going to make better products, and the products go out to public. They use it more. Once they use it more, the whole economy system kind of unfolds in front of you from a very small task that you have been assigned. So I think doing an MBA has given me that kind of perspective now.
Yeah.
So when I get any task, I can connect the dots, at least hypothesize where this task will lead me to and how will it affect the bigger business of the company.
Yeah. So, if you had to give someone who's still in high school advice on what they should do if they want to go down a similar career path in electrical engineering, what would you tell them?
I I would tell them that I have always believed in and lived my life on is that no subject or whatever classes you take are unrelated. Everything is related. You could take a history class and still apply concepts that you learned in physics. Somehow they are intermingled. And like suppose if you're studying a history class about learning about pyramids, you could, and knowing about physics, you could just like cross over them and learn something new out of it. So no class is unrelated or totally tangential. Everything somehow interferes with each other. And if you have that kind of cross domain or inter-functional knowledge, you'll be able to create better products, better solutions, better ideas, good patents, good papers out of it. So just don't silo yourself when you pick your classes. Say, I want to be an electrical engineer, so I'm going to take a computer architecture class. I'm going to take a VLSI class. I'm going to take a microelectronics class, which is all good. These are fundamentals. But do something that stretches your imagination. Take a class in arts. Take a class in, say, sociology. Take a class in economics. It gives you a bigger picture on how what you are learning as your core discipline can influence industries that or domains that you have not even thought of. One example that comes to my mind is I was talking to someone who's doing some research in quantum finance, and it mixes the principles of quantum physics and typical finance that we know, which is fascinating. So math and probability nature of quantum physics meeting a very discrete nature of finance, which is just pure numbers. So all these things, when they intermingle, they create a very powerful force. So someone who's looking to start their career or to go to college and coming out of high school, I would say learn as much as you can and don't be scared of learning new things. Because when you stretch your imagination, that's when true magic happens. And again, whatever this advice is comes with a great grain of salt. This is what I have believed in, but believe in what you believe in and take those steps with full confidence, because the only thing that you will regret later is the steps not taken, and you will not regret about the steps taken. So go forth and change the world and create better things.
Yeah. All right then. Thank you for meeting with me.
All right, sure. Good luck. Thank you.